It's a very difficult question to answer because I never really know what's going to come out of which. I just write every day and I collect stories and incidents and all kinds of things that I keep writing down. And I think one of the things that really differs between writing novels and screenplays is that novels tend to be much more epic. You can just spread it out and it can go anywhere, really. Whereas a movie still has only 100 minutes to go. Okay, TV series have longer time, longer stretch, but still you have to be faster with the way of storytelling in film. And if I know the answers to a lot of questions too early on, I can't write prose about it. And that might sound really weird, but in prose, I just have to keep going without knowing where I'm going to go. If you know exactly what your novel is going to be about, I think it's very, very boring to actually write it because you have to find out while you're writing it. But for a movie, at a certain point, you have to know where you're going because there is more structure to it. Even if you try to get rid of structure, which I try to do a lot of times, I try to really cut out as much structure as possible because structure bores me. At the same time, you still need it. And a movie needs more structure, and it needs, I think, more clarity. And the clearer things are, or characters are, the more they drift towards movies, and the more nebulous things are, the more they drift toward prose, I think. So sometimes I have a very clear image of a person, like in Cherry Blossoms, Cerezos en Flor. I just knew exactly who this old man was, Woody. And I knew that he had to be in a movie. And it's maybe a very vague explanation, but that's the best that I can do, because really things just keep happening while I'm writing them. And then sometimes they move this way, sometimes that way. I just finished writing the second part of Cherry Blossoms, 10 years after the first one. And it started out as a ghost story, as a novel. But then the ghosts were so clear all of a sudden that now it's going to be a movie. There's one very basic difference. When I write literature, it doesn't cost anything. Not a dime. I can invent whole worlds and they will not cost anything. But in a screenplay, every sentence costs money. So that's very limiting. I know that, okay, I won't be able to finance that sentence, just one sentence. And I won't be able to finance this and that. So it's more like, squeezing a lemon. That's what screenwriting is. So the freedom is very, very limited because of money, but also because of certain things that the screen, and no matter how big or small the screen is, does not allow you. It has to be far clearer and far more, clear cut in a movie. So again, that really limits you. And then there are limitations of time. You cannot switch in different time zones as fast as you could do in one sentence. So there are a lot of very limiting things in films. A person gets into a car and drives away. Okay, what do? Do you show the person you're walking to the car, getting in, turning the ignition, leaving? Yes, you can cut it down to a very brief moment, but still, it's gravity. Somehow you have to get the person into the car, and somehow the car has to leave. So gravity is really, I think, a key element to filmmaking, that you deal with real bodies and you deal with gravity all the time. And that is very limiting in many ways. It's also fun because you have to somehow rearrange these bodies constantly in a very actual sense, because you have your actors. And in literature, you are completely free of gravity. It's beyond gravity. At the same time, though, I really enjoy the fact that it's not just my own mind when I make films. It's many, many different minds and their imagination and their ideas and what they bring to the story, and of course, especially the actors, but everybody else in the crew. And I enjoy that. I don't insist on every dot the way I wrote it in the screenplay. I like to just, invite everybody in. I think that as a director, you always have to build trust. That's, I think, your main job, to build trust. And why? Because I think only trust allows everybody to be daring, and you have to be daring in everything you do, but especially in making films. I think you have to be daring. But to be daring takes a lot of courage. You have to be very careful, I think. If you go to another country and you try to tell something about that country or within that country, you have to be very aware of your cultural cliches. And you bring them with you, of course. And to shut up and listen and watch, I think, is the most important exercise that you have to do in another country. It's even more difficult in your own country to shut up and listen and not, judge. And that makes it easier, though, too, in another country, because you're kind of innocent and you don't know about the prejudices in that country. You can be more open sometimes, because you cannot read the nuances. I mean, here in Mexico, it took me forever to read class nuances, class differences, or also race differences. I can't tell, I cannot differentiate because I'm not used to the prejudices that each country, and of course Mexico also has inside your own country. You wouldn't be able to read in Germany in exactly who is who, and who is maybe a Turkish immigrant and who isn't, and who's from Syria and who's German. It would be difficult for you too. So, but this enables you, or enables me, to ask very stupid questions, which sometimes can be questions that nobody else asks because they are no-go, they're a taboo. And that can be very enlightening, not only for me as a filmmaker, but also for the other side. And especially in my movie Fukushima, Mon Amour, it was very evident the taboo in Japan is you don't talk about the catastrophe of Fukushima anymore. You don't do that. Everybody wants to forget about it. And nobody has ever gone to the zone to shoot a fiction film. Nobody. I mean, everybody thinks it's totally insane. For instance, I think relations between men and women, that is, well, it's not, maybe not a taboo, but I think it's being discussed in a much more careful manner, or in a very different manner than what I'm used to. Because in Germany, I mean, the bottom line is that you are friends with men. And then, everything else comes after that. First you're friends, and then you might have a sexual relationship, or you get married or whatever, but first you have to be friends. So the relationship between sexes is very different. Or what does it mean to be a man in Germany? I think that's maybe not a taboo, but that's very different here. Then, the relationship with violence is another thing that, again, I'm very, very innocent because I come from a country where virtually no violence exists, which is very, very privileged. So I have no experience of violence, which makes me like, a very alien person. And for me to try to understand that is maybe for me and for my country a taboo. How do we talk about violence when we maybe pretend there is no violence at all? When you look at it closer, of course there's violence in Germany, but it's not violence in the society outside, it's inside. It's in families, it's against women in families. There's a lot of stuff going on, but of course it's not as open, apparent in other ways. So a lot of times, the question that you are confronted with in another country is asking the question in your own country. Really, you have to take that question back into your own country and and see, okay, what is really going on in my country. But then this innocence is interesting. I mean, for me, a policeman, for instance, is always my friend. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I would always turn towards a policeman. Help me, I'm lost, I have a problem, help me. Okay, I guess it's a bit different here. Hola, soy Dörrie, soy directora y escritora de Alemania y quería invitarles a ver mis películas a la Cineteca Nacional esa semana hasta las 13 de agosto.